First-time homebuyers are making the mistake of trying to buy their dream home. It's important who you work with, from a real estate agent all the way to the lender. Most people actually read the headlines and believe they can't own a home. You may be able to afford more, but for your financial goals, not going to your max because it's based on your debt-to-income ratio. I say to the agents on our team, I don't get paid until you close something. There's more at stake here for me to see you succeed. Zillow estimates are like dating or going on a date with somebody and only choosing them because of the outside. I think that homeownership is important to your retirement, to your success in life. I'm Ryan Reed. I'm a real estate agent in Arizona with the Valley Home Group at West USA Realty, and this is the Last Dollar Show.
Coming on the show, really appreciate it. Obviously you've been killing it in the real estate game, so diving right into it, let's talk a little bit about your background and how you got started in real estate.
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually interested in real estate for a long time, but had worked in different careers and businesses that it didn't make sense to get into it. And so when I had the opportunity to buy a rental property, actually, is my first kind of journey into it. And a few months after purchasing that, I decided to pursue getting my real estate license. And from there, it just kind of took off. After 2020, I did one transaction that year, and then in 2021, I did 25 transactions. And so,
wow, real quick start.
Yeah.
So just getting into the real estate game, you know, obviously you have to overcome those feelings of, do I even belong? You know, helping out home buyers right now, what's the biggest misconception with where the housing market's currently at?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest misconception is that people don't think they can actually own a home. They think it's way out of reach. If it's anywhere from down payment that they think is going to be 20%, or even just that the monthly payments wouldn't make sense to them financially to own a home. So that's probably where I see the biggest misconception when it comes to purchasing or owning a home.
So if you're someone who wants to, you've been renting for the last few years, you finally want to start considering buying a home, what's the first thing you should do when you're going to try and purchase a home?
Yeah, absolutely. First thing you should do is reach out to me. No, you should definitely reach out, interview, get connected with a real estate agent. And then from there, they're going to introduce you to a real estate mortgage lender. And it's important who you work with, from a real estate agent all the way to the lender, because they can make or break whether you're purchasing or not. And then that lender is going to sit down with you and make sure that the numbers make sense. And sometimes you got to work on your credit score, and it may be only a few points, and it's really easy, and in a few months you can have that done. And sometimes it's, you need to work on saving just a little bit more for that down payment. Now, there's programs out there with down payment assist and things like that, but it really depends on each person, which is why I always say, let's sit down and have a buyer strategy call or a buyer strategy meeting to figure out what it's going to take for you to be a homeowner.
Do you feel like most people end up being able to afford more or less than they actually think?
Yeah, usually with the clients that I've worked with for the last few years, it's that they can afford more. Which I usually don't suggest. Just because you can afford more, you should buy more. You really want to look at, yes, you may be able to afford more, but for your financial goals, or just even having some buffer and wiggle room, not going to your max because it's based on your debt to income ratio. And so I usually say, just for your peace of mind, you should not go to your max unless that is where you're comfortable at.
Yeah, I was really surprised when my wife and I purchased our home. They approved us for almost $1 million,
Yeah.
and we definitely would be living extremely tight if we decided to take that mortgage on.
Yeah.
So it's just every time you get that information back of, oh my gosh, I can buy $1 million home. Well, for our financial situation, we would have just been writing the thinnest of margins every single month for our budget.
Yeah, and that's what happens. Most people actually read the headlines and believe they can't own a home. So in your case, you guys obviously got pre-qualified and went, wow, based on our income and our debt, we can afford a lot more. It doesn't mean we go there, but on the opposite end, people are reading the headlines and going, oh, well, I can't own a home. And most of the time when they're looking at how much they're paying in rent, the little bit more it generally would cost them to own a home, they are forgetting that if you just took that, let's call it a couple $100s more a month, and thought about how much you put into savings or in your 401k, but now you are paying off a home that someday you're going to own free and clear, it's a wise investment. It's a wise to continue to make your mortgage payment and to not be paying somebody else's mortgage off. Now, don't get me wrong, being a landlord, I love that somebody else paid down my mortgage and I got all the plus side of them paying down my mortgage and all the equity gain I've had.
So getting started off in the real estate space, kind of explain your first 3 months to me of how that went and what that looked like when you decided, all right, I'm going to take this on full time.
Yeah, so going into it full time, getting my license, I thought I just wanted to, explore it. It was during COVID, just kind of wanted to have more information, knowledge. And then, just posted that I got my real estate license, had bought a investment property earlier that year. Just anybody wanted to hear about the journey I had on, working to be able to buy and own an investment property, buy a rental property. And then from there, I just posted it, and I have a huge community of people that know me and they like me and they trust me. And so that began a lot of conversations. And so the end of 2020 is when I did my first transaction with one of my wife's friends and now a really good friend of ours. And that was my first intro into it. Now, if you go into 2021, doing all of those transactions, I was working full time, and about halfway through the year, I felt like, okay, well, if this is what I'm supposed to be doing, it's pretty obvious that God is blessing me with a lot of business and a lot of people that want to work with me. And so that was my, I need to resign or, work less at my full-time job to really pursue this. And my wife looked at me and said, okay, well, let's give it a go. This seems like God's really blessing you here. Really, you're fortunate. Let's go and see if we can run with this. And that's
what was the tipping point for you of when you decided, okay, I'm going to quit my full-time job. I'm going to take on real estate. Was it when the money was enough? Was it when you had enough leads? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, it was when I had closed 12 transactions in 6 months. I went, wow, because considering the average real estate agent in Arizona does round 2, and nationally it's like less than 3. A year, considering I did 12 in 6 months, I said, okay, well, there's probably obviously something to this, and that this is somewhere where I'm being led to go. And I really loved it. It utilized a lot of my skills, from just the love of people and caring about them and helping them, to the negotiation. That's one of my favorite parts of this. And there's just so many facets to it. For me, it's been just a phenomenal way to use a lot of my skill set in one industry and in one way.
So for someone who's looking to get into being a real estate agent, there's about 20 different real estate agent courses you can take on Instagram. You see all these different people. What would you say the first thing you should look into is?
I mean, looking into it, I would say you definitely want to go to a school that has a high success rate. That's one of the first things I would say. The second thing is ask yourself why you're getting into it. If you think it's because it's easy money or like selling sunset, that's not what real estate really is like. And the next thing I would say is, if you're really considering it, is, do you have enough savings to support yourself? Because it is an industry that if you're not doing this full time, it's really hard to keep your finger on the pulse of the market. And when you're dealing with somebody's biggest investment most of them make in their life, I don't know that many people want to trust it with somebody that doesn't do it full time. And so that's where I would say is, the biggest and the fastest way people don't succeed in real estate is not trying to pursue it full time. And I understand I was doing it part time. Really, my wife said I was doing a full-time job and doing it full time, and burning the candle at both ends, which is I think also why she told me I should probably try to pursue this full time.
So obviously people love entrepreneurship because the dream and the fantasy is that they're going to have all this free time. What does your schedule actually look like on a weekly basis?
So this is what I tell people. They think that they make their own schedule. So the day they wake up and they have their real estate license, they're like, so what do I do, right? Nobody's there to tell you what to do. And so one of the things about being an entrepreneur in real estate, because all of us are, we're 1099, we're not employed by a brokerage, is we are entrepreneurs. We are self-employed. And my statement is you eat what you kill, right? So if you're not out there talking to people about real estate, not doing, having conversations and getting out there and talking with people about real estate, it's going to be really hard to survive in this business.
All right, so I see a lot of people on Instagram talking about how I can build up this rental kingdom of I can take equity from one home and roll it over into the next. Starting off, I've heard about home equity line of credits. Can you explain to me what a HELOC is?
Yeah, absolutely. So you said exactly what it is, home equity line of credit, right? And it's basically if you have enough equity in your home, you can pull money from there, borrow it from there. Now, granted, borrowing the money, somebody's giving you that money because you haven't sold your home. So you haven't actually realized yet that equity. So the bank is giving you money against the home. And so you still have to be able to manage those payments and make it make sense. Now, that was how I bought my first rental property. I saved up some and pulled out the rest to put down the 20% because it was an investment property. I wasn't living in it. And so that is something that people need to look at. Like they need to get with a really great real estate agent. I'm a broker, so a real estate agent or a broker to run the numbers because they got to look at what is that payment going to be? What is that payment on a HELOC? It can move, right? If you don't lock in that percentage of interest, that payment can move. So they do have to be wise about it. And so when it comes to investing and getting into real estate and cash flowing a rental property, it's generally not, at least now in this current market, something that you're going, oh, I'm going to cash flow a bunch, right? It's more about how am I going to have somebody else be paying off that mortgage, maybe cash flowing a little bit, but they're now also, as the market grows, you're building equity. So it's that kind of both and so it's not a short-term gain maker, right? These are long-term investments. I call it long holding. And so that's, for me, when I'm working with investors now, what we're looking at is that long hold. Like how long do they need to hold it for it to make the most sense? Can we make it make sense even just from a cash flow standpoint on a monthly, what rents are going for in that area, what their mortgage is going to be, or their mortgage plus the HELOC going to be.
So I feel like a lot of people talk, and obviously on social media we romanticize all these ideas of making all this money and it being so easily. But it sounds like for a rental property, do you have to put down a full 20% if you want to purchase that?
Yeah, so if you're not going to be living in the home, you have to put down anywhere from 20 to 25%. Now remember, I'm not a lender, and there's programs out there and lenders are different, but in general, you're going to be putting down anywhere from 20 to 25% if you're not living in the home. Now, what I try to do is show people how they can purchase a home, and in a few years, when they're ready to make a move up or down or into a different area, how to turn that property into a rental property and purchase their next one. So I call it leaving a trail of rental properties in your wake, as you want to move or as life changes.
So obviously, managing a rental property, it sounds great. You're building up the cash flow, you're building up equity, you're going to have this long-term investment. What are some of the pitfalls people don't realize about rentals?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're a nice person and your renter doesn't want to pay on time, even though you may have a lease in place and there's fees and late fees and things like that, nice people sometimes get taken advantage of it. And so I consider myself a pretty good negotiator, but I'm still a nice guy. And so when I first owned my rental property, there was times where I was getting paid late, and I still got to make my mortgage payment no matter what. And so that could be a pitfall. I mean, I ended up hiring a property manager, and that was the smartest move I ever made. But people can self-manage, so understanding some of the rules and laws, because as a landlord, there is the Landlord-Tenant Act here in Arizona that they do have to abide by. And so that's an aspect that, just understanding the rules and expectations you as a landlord have to provide to somebody renting your property.
So I hear a lot of people say renting is like throwing money away. I know that you're on the home buying side and getting into homes, but kind of defend the renting side of why somebody should rent instead of buying.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that home ownership is important to your retirement, right? To your success in life. But I don't think owning a home too soon in your life or at the right time when in your financial trajectory, just how you're doing in life, may be the best for you, right? Like that's why I regularly tell people, hey, I think you should wait a little while to purchase something, right? Because they're going to be purchasing something that I know is not going to fit their needs, is going to make them uncomfortable, and it may be a year or two before they're in a different position financially to be able to upgrade what they currently have. So not everyone should purchase a home right away. It should be something that you plan for in your life, and you have a goal and you're saving, and you maybe even goal financially. Like when I get to this salary in my career, or if I get to this level of management or whatever it may be that makes the most sense for you to have a goal to do that then. But I don't believe everybody should purchase a home if it doesn't make financial sense to them.
And I think a lot of people too lose that outlook, even when it starts making financial sense of, okay, am I going to get into such a large home, into such a big payment that I'm going to be running myself thin? I think that's something great, especially too if you have someone who's on your side that's going to tell you, have that hard conversation of, I'm not sure you're ready to buy yet. Now, obviously, from the business side, you're going to make commission. That would be great, but you have to start putting people ahead of your commission. And I think that's what's so great about yourself.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's always been my heart in any business, any industry is like, how do I care about this person more than what I'm going to gain out of it, right? And when you do that, when you work with people like that, first off, I create clients for life. When I say, hey, I don't think it's a great time for you, they're like, wait, what? Like, but you're not going to make any money. No, you're right. but I believe this is what's best for you based on what you shared with me. And so here's some of the things I think you could do to be ready for that. And when you do that, like I've received referrals from people that I'm like, hey, I just don't think this is a good time for you yet. I think you should wait a little while. I've probably received 4 or 5 referrals from one of the people I said, hey, I don't think right now is when you should buy.
So what's the biggest mistake you see first-time home buyers making?
First-time home buyers are making the mistake of trying to buy their dream home the first time. They really need to look at what is an ideal home or the home I can get into right now to get started.
So I went on Zillow the other day and it estimated my house about $100,000 more than what I bought it for, and that was only a few months ago. What's your opinion on those Zillow estimates?
Yeah, so Zillow estimates are like dating or going on a date with somebody and only choosing them because of the outside. Zillow doesn't know what the inside looks like. It could be a complete disaster on the inside, may look really great on the outside or fits the algorithm of the area. And so I don't like Zillow estimates. It's great for people to kind of have an idea of what is happening in the neighborhood, but Zillow doesn't know what the interior of your home looks like, which can make it really off, just like dating based only on somebody's outside, appearance.
I've heard a lot of appraisers come in and it seems like they appraise the house exactly what the offer is. So kind of explain the appraisal process a little bit, because I think this would bring a lot of clarity for some people.
Yeah, absolutely. So the appraiser in essence is hired by the bank or for the bank to help make sure that the buyer isn't overpaying for a home. So their job in essence is to make sure that what you've offered on the home at least meets value. They're not there to tell you, oh, well, it's worth 50 grand more or 5 grand more. Now, if based on the comps in the area, they may say, well, it's not worth what you are offering. And then what happens is you have to go back to the negotiation table with the seller and decide, can you guys figure out, or were the seller willing to drop the price? Because at the end of the day, they're saying that the other homes that are similar to this in the neighborhood did not sell at that amount. And what you're offering has not met that amount that they needed to for the bank. It's to protect all parties.
So what type of market are we in right now? Because 2020 was a crazy market. You had people going in, cash buyers, waiving inspection, but the times have changed. We're 5 years down the road now. What does the market look like right now?
Yeah, absolutely. The market is what we would say is a very normal market, where different cities and different neighborhoods are shifting either from buyers like neighborhoods to sellers neighborhoods, and that kind of balance where truly the buyer's going in and negotiating and the seller's also negotiating back. And so we do have some neighborhoods that are sellers markets, and they're getting to call the shots, and buyers, if they really want to be in there, they're going to have to pay what the seller's willing. And then we have some neighborhoods that are buyers markets, where buyers are getting to come in and say, hey, seller, I want to offer you less for your home, and I'm going to ask you to help me with some of my closing costs. And so truly every neighborhood, every city has some different buyer and seller, and that's currently where we're at in 2025, 3/4 of the way through the year. So that's what I would say is where we're at in the market right now. It's not a buyers or sellers, it's gently balanced market.
It seems like the market's speeding up just a little bit as far as refinancing goes, because everybody's dream is to buy their home at the lowest value, at the highest rates, then rates drop a ton and you time everything perfectly. So kind of explain what refinancing, what its role in the buying process looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's important to get with the lender that offers either a free refinance in the future or some sort of discounted refinance, especially if you're banking on, I'm buying at a little bit higher of an interest rate. I really want to refinance in a few years when the rates drop, or at a point where they're lower and it makes the most sense for me to do that. So it plays a nice role in the sense of, yeah, I can refinance. If I can get a refinance for free, if I'm working with a lender that offers that, then obviously you're not paying anything. You're not adding any more onto your mortgage. And so it does play a role in your monthly payments. And that's the biggest thing. But for me, I tell my clients, like, listen, if you can't afford this for the foreseeable future, don't bank on being able to refi if they go lower. I joke and I say my crystal ball broke in the '08 crash. And so I don't say I have a crystal ball and think in a year and a half it's going to drop, right? We listen to what the Fed say, and then the Fed decides to drop it or not drop it, right? And we have no control over that. And there's lots of different aspects that control that too. And so at the end of the day, I tell my clients, make sure that you can make this payment make sense, and it would be a blessing or a huge advantage to you if you dropped your payment by $100 if you could refinance.
So I think a lot of people think refinancing is free. Kind of explain some of the costs with refinancing.
Well, to be full disclosure, I am not a loan officer. So I know just enough to get myself in trouble. But what it comes down to is you got to think that they have to reappraise the home. They're going to have to do all new loan paperwork again. So that lender's redoing all of your loan paperwork. If your loan was sold off, they could be refinancing it with another bank that's offering a cheaper rate. So it's kind of like writing your loan all over again. And so there is cost to that. Again, every lender is different. I wish I could give you some, pat answer on that. But I always say make sure you know how much it does cost if you are refining. Because if you don't have that money in your pocket to pay them directly, you're going to put it on your loan, which means now you got to make some more payments to cover that refinance. But if the interest rate dropped enough where your monthly payment saved you a lot and you now don't plan on refinancing for a really long time, it may make more sense to still add that money on top of that loan.
So let's talk about the business owner aspect of being a real estate agent, being a real estate broker. Obviously, it's a very saturated market. What's some marketing that you're doing right now, or what's some tips that you have to separate yourself as a real estate agent?
Yeah, absolutely. I do not treat people like transactions. I think that's one of the biggest things. 85% of our business comes from word of mouth or referral. So people that know me, like me, and trust me refer me. Even if they haven't done business with me, they refer me. So that's one of our biggest ways that my business partner and I and our team grow our business. Now, the other part is we are doing advertising. We have our signs in yards when we're selling properties, and people call and they ask questions, and we build relationships with them that way. We do online, so we do Facebook, Instagram, pay-per-clicks with Google, Yahoo, run ads. I mean, we do all of that stuff, but it's only 15% of our business, right? Those are people that you don't have a relationship, don't know you yet. And so the biggest thing for us is when we're talking to them, we just want to be educators. We want to help them understand, especially if they have never purchased before. Like, our heart is to educate them on the purchasing process so that they know what to expect when the time is right for them. And so for me, a big thing is just not being pushy. I'm one of those people, I just want to educate you, give the information, and when the time is right, I want to work with you and I want to be there for you. But you're not going to get me calling you 5 times a day, 100 times a month, anything like that.
So as far as running your business, you have a business partner. Obviously, a lot of people don't realize that's like adding a second marriage. And
Absolutely.
Kind of explain the process of getting started with your business partner and when you guys decided, all right, we want to go on this venture together.
Yeah, absolutely. Kevin and I had been friends for a long time. Had volunteered together at church and the youth group, and so I had known him for a long time. And out of just kind of joking, passing in the gym, I said to him, hey, when are we going to partner up? And he goes, actually, Maya, his wife, and I were just talking about that. And I was like, really? Because I always thought about that when I had first started. I'd been in about 3 years at this point, and you're solo, right? Every morning you got to get up and you hold yourself accountable, and you don't get to run this offer by somebody else necessarily to kind of get some feedback. Hey, what do you think? Anything else I could do to make this offer better for my first time home buyer? Or what do you think on this listing? I'm thinking that it's priced at this based on these comps. So it was huge when him and I talked and actually partnered, because we joined our businesses, 2 independent businesses coming together. The first year or two, it took some growth. It took some going, okay, cool, you're going to handle that. Okay, I'm going to handle this. And what we found is that us coming together created such synergy, we did even more business. And then other agents wanted to be a part of these systems that we have now implemented. And that's the biggest thing in our business is like, we took what would have costed an individual agent so much more money and now brought it together on a team. And we're able to now have other agents that want to join our team and our system, join in and have the fruit of their clients having great communication, the great experience that they have overall buying or selling with us because of all of the systems we brought together.
So as a business owner, especially when you look on Instagram, you're mainly seeing the luxury real estate market. How have you guys branded and marketed yourself to, in a sense, find your specific client?
Yeah, absolutely. So in business, I always say, what's your ideal avatar, right? Who are the ideal clients you want to work with? And then when you do that, when you know who that is, then you're able to market to them, right? So the level of service we offer, we are definitely marketing to that luxury, second, maybe third time purchasing a home client, right? Who's worked with an individual agent, and that agent went on vacation while they were selling their home and couldn't get a hold of them. And, and being able to say, no matter what, you always have somebody that you can call on our team. Obviously, we want to be that first point. But if I'm not available and I'm on vacation, my business partner's there. And so that ideal client has worked with somebody in real estate and maybe hasn't had a great experience, and understands that we treat this at a high level. This is not a side gig. This is what we do for full time, as our careers and as our business. This is what feeds our families. This is what pays for soccer lessons, t-ball, all of that for our families. And so we're very serious about it. So the ideal client, we know, is somebody who's sold or bought a home before, maybe didn't have a great experience, and wants to work with professionals.
So for someone who wants to get into this, obviously real estate looks like a great profession from the outside. There's a lot of money to be made. What's going to be some challenges that they're going to face early on?
So I think people getting into this definitely think it is easy. So the first challenge is understand that it's going to be difficult. Knowing the contract, understanding the contract. Real estate school doesn't teach you the real estate business. It teaches you the real estate rules. And those are great, and you need to know those, but there's just so much more to the business than just getting your license. And so people struggle because they're on their own. And they may be at a brokerage and they think their broker is going to tell them how to run their business. And since they're a 1099 contractor, that broker is not going to tell you how to run your business. They're going to tell you how to stay out of trouble so you don't do anything illegal and you don't get sued. But the biggest thing I think agents that are new in the business need to do is get on a team, right? Be working with a team that's doing a good volume, and be able to learn the business.
Yeah, I think mentorship is a very underrated aspect of starting any business. I know when we started our insurance brokerage, the first thing we did was go find someone, hey, I would like to be like this person, and let me try and go learn from them. I think especially as a mentee, a lot of people don't realize how nice it is for someone to ask you to be their mentor. It's kind of a nice stroke to your ego when you go, hey, you're doing really well. Do you mind just sitting down with me and having coffee once a month for an hour and me trying to learn from you? How would you say somebody should go about trying to find a mentor in real estate?
Yeah, absolutely. I think first they need to pick a brokerage, which is what we have to do. We have to hang our license with a brokerage. So picking a brokerage that is going to make the most financial sense to them. There's big brokerages that you pay a lot of percentage per transaction and a monthly fee to. And then there's what we call flat fee brokerages, right? There's a one fee per transaction and maybe a small monthly. And getting where it makes the most financial sense to you first. But then when you go and interview a team, right? The biggest thing I tell people is get on a team, and if those team leads, is what we would call them, are in a place where you want to be, let's call it in a year to 3 years, and they offer mentorship, or if you can join the team, and they're willing to learn, to teach you the systems and the processes and the whys, and take you on listing appointments or buyer consultations. If you find a team that's willing to do that, that's where I say you should join, right? So that's what you should be looking for. At the end of the day, we all pay, right? You're either going to pay monthly to have a coach that has no financial gain if you sell something or not, or a team, which generally is a percentage. They share a percentage of the commission when you close something. So I say to the agents on our team, I don't get paid until you close something. So there's more at stake here for me to see you succeed than if you just paid me monthly for coaching.
So, as far as some crazy client stories, what's been the weirdest request that you've had from someone for what they're looking for in a house?
Yeah, so I don't know if I'd call it the weirdest, but I basically had somebody who had every aspect of what they expected the home to look like. I kind of looked at the person and I thought they were joking, and this was a buyer, and they're like, "No, I'm serious." I was like, "So, would you like me to connect you with a custom home builder?" And they were like, "Well, no, this is just all of what I expect." And I mean, I'm saying down to the kind of tile in the bathroom, the direction it faced, and it couldn't be a north-south or an east-west. It had to be at an angle. And I literally thought they were joking. And I said, well, I don't think what you're looking for is out there, because this sounds like a custom home. So that was pretty funny. Now, one of the craziest stories taking a client into a home was We had requested a showing, the agent approved it. When the agents approve a showing, they've talked to their client, told them that somebody's coming to see the house at this time. And I walked in, and there was a person walking out, a female in a towel, that didn't know we were showing, and she screamed and ran, and I screamed and ran, and yeah, so that was probably one of the most embarrassing, funny moments in my career so far.
Oh, man. So as far as building boundaries with clients go, obviously, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, when in a sense you eat what you kill, there's a hard dichotomy of setting boundaries with a client, but also you need to serve them at the same time. Yeah. What are some suggestions you would have to someone getting into real estate for boundaries with clients?
Yeah. The first thing understanding is you work when they're not. So nights and weekends, you should expect to be showing your clients houses, setting appointments with them to, go over listing their home. So that's the first thing. People aren't used to that. If they're coming from a corporate job, they're thinking, 9 to 5 or 8 to 5 or whatever. It is nights and weekends. During the day, you do business, right? There's other things you're doing during that time. And so I think what's really important is still managing expectations with your clients. One of the things I say when I'm sitting down with a client is, hey, when you call me or you text me, if I'm available, meaning I'm not sitting with my family having dinner, sitting with my family watching a movie, at a game with my family, and I'm not sitting with another client, I will pick up the phone and we will talk. If you text, I will absolutely respond to you just as soon as I can, and or call you back just as soon as I can. And so I try to make it really obvious and clear to them too, like, hey, this week I got this thing going on, just wanted to give you a heads up, so if you call me on Friday night, I'm on a date night with my wife. And so there's a lot of moving parts too. When you're selling somebody's house, there's agents requesting showings. And so agents need to understand, like, this is something that you are working for them to sell this property. Do I have the freedom to go golf in the middle of the day? Yeah, absolutely. Now, will I be on the golf course and maybe have my AirPod in and talking to a client or talking to another agent? Yeah, absolutely. So your family and your friends, they understand that there are going to be times where you are working when they're not, especially if they work in any kind of corporate structured job. And so that's one of the misconceptions and things that agents need to understand when they're getting into this business.
Buying a home is a huge financial decision. What's an underrated aspect of buying a home that people don't expect that maybe they'll get in the future or that they'll get immediately?
For me, it was being able to pull money out of my home to purchase an investment property, right? People want to update their homes. When they build enough equity, they can pull out a HELOC. They can do a cash out refi to be able to remodel the house exactly how they want. So that would be one of the aspects of it. And then also remembering, like, in 30 years, or if they choose to do a lesser term, they're going to have a paid off home, right? Like, they're no longer going to have a mortgage payment. And the kind of change that creates in your monthly budget, could you imagine not having your monthly payment and what else you could do with that, from investments to vacations to all of those different things? I think it's so important, and people don't talk about it. That's the problem. Like, we're not learning this in schools, that, hey, when you retire, it's going to make the most sense for you to have something paid off. Because if you're renting, that rent can go up or down, but generally up. And that's going to be really hard to manage in your retirement on a fixed income.
Still waiting for those rents to go down.
They go up quickly.
Yeah,
they don't come down very fast.
I haven't really seen them come down anytime lately.
Nope, they haven't.
So for someone who's just starting out, obviously when they look at someone like yourself, they go, how can I get to that position? If you could have all the knowledge you had today, but be back at the very beginning, what would be the first thing that you did?
The first thing I would tell them is to get a CRM. That is my biggest regret, not doing that early on. And I heard it from
What is it? What is a CRM?
Yeah. Customer relations management software. Any kind of thing that's going to keep all of your clients' information between you and them, right, obviously, in a place where you can send them emails, where you can send them text messages, and to be able to go, oh yeah, I haven't talked to this person in a really long time. I probably should talk to them. Because in our business, a lot of people will say, there's a study I read that basically said that agents have clients that love them. 9 out of 10 of the clients love their agent. But when it comes to buying or selling something again, only 3 out of the 10 actually use the agent they work with.
Wow.
And that's in part because we're not staying connected to our clients, to the people. Like, I don't call them past clients. You haven't heard me say that because they're not. Those are my clients. I want to help them know continually what their home's worth. I want them to know what's going on in the market. And so it's my job to make sure that they know that. And so that's where I say that system that shows you when you talk to them last, and even what you talked about, when you have a couple hundred people in your database, or even a couple thousand, it's hard to remember everything you talked about. And so that's my biggest regret, not starting off early on, having that when I first got in.
What was the biggest thing that you wasted money early on with?
Oh man, I call it shiny object syndrome. This is any entrepreneur, is you're getting marketed to all day long. And they're saying, you should use this, you should use this, we get people this, we do that, and not vetting it and not having some sort of responsibility on that company that's trying to market to you of like how they make money. My favorite thing to say to people that call me is, hey, this all sounds really good. I will pay you when one of the deals or the leads you sent to me closes. Are you good with that? And then they're like, well, no, it's a monthly payment of XYZ. And I'm like, okay, so you don't actually believe in your product. Because if you really believe in what you're doing, you won't get paid until I get paid, which is why I love real estate, because if I don't help you buy or sell something, I don't get paid. When I list the home, I'm confident because I know that if you follow this system and this plan based on what the market's yielding and you're good with those numbers, we'll sell your home. If you want to go way above that, we won't. So that's where I have to say, I'm going to put all the money out up front when I'm helping you sell your home, and I don't get paid until we sell that home. And so that's why I like to say the same thing to salespeople that call us. So that's one of the things that any entrepreneur has to keep in mind. I call it budget creep, right? How much money you're spending monthly, and all of a sudden you have $10,000 in overhead a month, and you're not really sure where it's going and why and how it's benefiting you.
On the flip side, what would you say the best thing that you've spent money on? If it's a buyer's gift, if it's marketing, what is it?
I mean, I would go back to my CRM, but what I would say what we spend the most amount of money on is doing client events. Going out and inviting our clients to, like we take our VIP clients to any kind of activity, like we did Putt Shack. We do we call Fall with Friends, which is where we invite all of our clients and we have catered food and games, and it's just a great time to hang out, picture booth and all kinds of fun things, just to talk and interact with our clients again. Those events yield just the most satisfaction, first off, but like connection with our clients. We do give back where we go serve, like we did Feed My Starving Children. We've done fundraisers for Harvest Compassion Centers, things like that where we can do and act and be with our clients is a lot of fun. And we do a kickball tournament every year too. That one's a blast because I'm super competitive.
So I think a lot of people, especially my age, look at marketing and we all immediately think of social media, but you miss out on the local marketing space. Obviously, with real estate, you're really only going to be able to go serve clients that you can go drive to. And probably as you keep going, this circle is going to get smaller and smaller of what you drive out to if it's not an $8 million home, of course. But that's great to hear that you're doing a lot of great local marketing, because with those events, okay, you invite all your clients out. You say in there, bring a friend. That could be another 50 people that you get to meet that you potentially could work with out in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And I say anything where you can be belly to belly with people is going to have the most return, right? They get to look you in the eyes, get to see you. They're going to think about you. And when they hear somebody talking about real estate, who do you think they're going to refer, right? It's the person that they saw last, talked to last, remembered, who they feel cared for, didn't feel taken advantage of, and felt like that person advocated the most for them.
Yeah, it's funny. We just had a lawyer on, and now we're having real estate agents on, and everybody are really scared of lawyers. But I feel like with real estate agents, it can be very intimidating because commission is anytime you bring up a job that has commission, it's immediately the thought of what are they doing to take advantage of me? Yeah. And I hope that people from this conversation learn that there's a lot of great real estate agents out there that are looking to do what's in your best interest. If you ever sit down with someone and they turn your business away, that's generally someone you know that you can trust.
Yeah, and I would tell people all the time, interview, right? You don't go with somebody just because you know them or your friend knows them, because in Arizona, there's 90,000 licensed agents, right? So I always joke when I'm at a restaurant, I said, throw a rock, you're probably going to hit a real estate agent, but that doesn't mean they're the best for you. One of my favorite things is when I do my buyer strategy calls, that are the in-person ones where I get to meet with them, is I give them a buyer guide, and at the end of it, I have questions to ask a real estate agent. Right? I want to earn their business. I hope I can. But if you decide not to work with me or you're going to be interviewing other people, here's some questions to ask. Like, who does that, right? Like, I'm giving you the questions to ask other agents so you make sure you hire the right person.
So for someone who's looking to buy in the next year, what's the number one piece of advice that you'd give them?
I would tell them not to wait for the interest rates to drop. If it makes sense right now where the interest rates are at, and a 0.5% is what's going to make even more sense to them, I wouldn't wait right now, because of the majority of the cities still have a kind of balanced sellers market. That means you're getting sellers that are willing to come down a little bit on their price potentially, or they're willing to offer concessions to help you with closing costs. As it goes back over into a buyer's market, meaning interest rates drop, sellers won't have to do as much or anything at all, and more buyers will be moving in the market, which means there's more competition when you're writing an offer. And so if somebody was thinking about waiting, I would say, let's sit down, let's look at the numbers, let's see what that actually gets you. And then I love analyzing, saying, okay, what would a 0.5% difference get you? Is that going to make enough difference if you can't get closing costs covered? Or it moves your purchase price up $10,000, but how much more home are you actually getting for that $10,000? So I'd love to sit down with that person, like right now, for them to have those numbers in mind so they can make a good decision if they were going to be waiting a year.
So it's funny, I think when my wife and I bought our home, you need rates to drop a lot for it to make a big difference in your payment. 0.25%, 0.5%, when we saw what those numbers were, it didn't really do as much as we thought.
Yep.
You know, they just slashed rates by a little bit, but you start looking at what that changes your monthly payment to. And like you said, if that brings more buyers in the market because you have your other people who are also waiting 0.5%, then okay, now your closing costs aren't covered. Okay, maybe that's another $10,000 on the asking price. That is something to think about of, okay, if I keep waiting, I'm going to have more competition on the houses that I'm trying to purchase.
Yeah, exactly. So you nailed it. That's exactly why, if it makes the most sense right now, then I'm going to say move forward. If it doesn't, I'm going to say, no, yeah, you need to wait. Like, until it gets to this percentage or you can come up with more money down, you need to wait, right? But for most people, they're reading the headlines and making decisions, which is not a great way to make decisions.
All right, Ryan. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. Like I said, I hope people, if they get anything from this conversation, is that, it's not intimidating to talk to a real estate agent. You can sit down and interview them. You don't have to work with the first person you talk to. But if people want to connect with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I say is go Google Ryan Reed, Realtor, Arizona. It's a great way. You can find out, all about me. You can find out what people are saying about me. Social media, Ryan at Valley Home Group. You can also, RyanAZRealty.com is my website, or you can call me, 602-578-8456. Any one of those would be a great way to get a hold of me.
Yeah, and we'll have all of Ryan's info in the show notes as well. If you just hit the description, links to all of his social media. But thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks.